an invitation to great living. My text is found in that second lesson which we read earlier for us from Mark's Gospel. In my younger days, I was a pretty avid curler. I had my high moments when I won a few games. I had a lot of low moments when I lost a lot of them. But win or lose, I enjoyed the games. I was watching someone, I think it was probably an advertisement for curling brooms or something of the sort, but they had a curler curling in the advertisement. That was just a day or two ago, and it struck me that it was interesting that I was involved in the game of curling. I hadn't been from boyhood, and so I asked myself the question, how did it all begin? And I realized, after thinking somewhat, that it all began with a telephone call. My curling life began with an invitation. And men and women, that is precisely the way in which our life with Christ begins. It begins with a call, with an invitation from Him to a greater life. We see that clearly in our text. Jesus goeth up into a mountain and calleth unto him whom he would. The disciples' life with Christ then began with a call, with an invitation. That is the way the Christian life always begins. It cannot begin in any other way. We cannot initiate a right relationship with Jesus Christ. That is something He alone can do. The old Scottish lady said to a neighbor who had asked her a question. The neighbor had asked her, I see that you love Jesus Christ very much. When did you first begin to love Him? And the dear old Scottish lady drew herself up and she said, I didn't begin to love Him at all. He did the courting. Later on, Jesus reminded the disciples of this very truth. You did not choose me, He said, but I have chosen you. The Christian life then begins when a man or a woman hears the call of Christ. And we need to ask ourselves this morning whether we have heard that call yet. Softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling for you and for me. But have you heard Him yet? Sometimes people fail to hear the call of Christ because they're never still long enough to hear His voice. He can come to them, speak to them, call them, plead with them, invite them, but the call never reaches some people, sadly. And why is that? Oh, it's because they have no ears to hear with. Their spiritual receiving set is all out of order. When they fail to hear, then sometimes, sadly again, they have the unmitigated gall and audacity to say, there is no God. If only they would keep quiet. The Bible says, be still and know that I am God. When a young student came to the great Scottish scholar and preacher James S. Stewart and said that he couldn't believe in God, the great man did not give him some intellectual arguments or philosophical proofs for the existence of God. Instead, he sent the boy home to sit quietly in his bedroom for 10 minutes every morning to see if God, supposing there was a God, would actually speak to him. A month or so later, that young man came roaring back to Dr. Stewart to say that Christ had broken in upon him called him by name, invited him to share a bigger and a greater life with him. That can happen to every one of us. That is why Jesus said, he that hath ears to hear, let him hear. The Christian life begins with a call, an invitation from Christ. But of course, that invitation must be responded to. There must be an affirmation, a glad and willing yes. In the words of the young Samuel, speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth thee. The first disciples made precisely that response. Jesus goeth up